Welcome everyone. Today we have a Alliance tier list for the latest fast-paced meta for Dota Underlords. As some of us know, the latest two patches have increased the damage that we take with the loss of units. So the units that defeat us on the defensive round will do more damage for every stage of the round. And because of that, and also with the new ranking system, top 4 now gives rank up. Not a rank up in terms of tier, but it will give us MMR instead of lose MMR if we face lower rank people. And knowing that's the case, this particular tier list is tailored to help us to go a little further with the fast-paced meta and also to aim for top 4 in most of the games. This is the first Alliance tier list. We'll look into items and units as well. And with the pace of the meta, builds that tends to come online in the late game are much weaker because we might die before those key units are found. Sometimes we can't find the 2-star Keeper of the Light, sometimes we can't find the 4th Scrappy, other times it's just that we lose too much HP to the early game builds like Savages, Assassins, etc. Our tier list is more tailored for mid-game and assumes most players don't make it after round 30. This usually secures us with the top 4 positioning, and depending how we roll with the units and what synergies and alliance we pick, we can go further into the top 2 and number 1. Here is our tier list. We'll go through each of them as we go. The top of the tier is the S tier alliance. At the moment for me, it is Hunters, Savages, Druids, and Warriors. Those are a little different to most because previously we had Mages, Warlocks on top of the tier list. Because of the fast-paced meta, the Hunters are great. To start with the Hunters, previously we had only 6 Hunters with Tide Hunter becoming a Warrior. Now having 7 Hunters with Lycan and 5 of the Hunters below 5 cost, it's so early to be able to find our Hunters and to be able to use them. And this is crucial for the early game. We can find 3 Hunters with Heartless, we can find 3 Hunters with Warriors, 3 Hunters with Druids maybe, or 3 Hunters with Savages with Lycan and Tusk, or maybe Enchantress. So opportunities with Hunters variation are multiple, and this makes us flexible for the early game, and Hunters a decent amount of damage. We need a 2-star tank sometimes, maybe 3 Warriors, to make it effective so we can save our gold and start to curve into the mid game with decent economy and not much of a health lost. Then we can use my Hunter strategy with a build to go more aggressive with spending and leveling up after round 15, to go to level 8 maybe at round 17, or maybe even to go to level 9 at round 21. After the Hunters, the next thing on the list is the Savage. We can see that Lycan actually fits both the Hunter and the Savage. On the Savage, there are actually 3 Savage units that are tier 1. This includes the Tusk, the Enchantress, and also the Venomancer, which went from 3 tier to tier 1. Having that many available units in tier 1 means you can find quite a bit of Savage very early into 2-star. And this can be very powerful, especially when we find the bleeding item, Tooth and Claw for the Savage. We all know how strong those are because they keep stacking damage, it's infinite stacking, and especially with the Venomancer with the Wards they summon, and Lycan with the Wolves. A Lycan with the Wolves that does double attack with Hunter can do so much bleeding damage as well. The Savages can go into the Warriors, Savages can go into the Heartless, also the Warlock because Venomancer is a Warlock, and those can be quite strong in the early game. Here the focus is on dominating early game, and we go further. And on the next one, talking about early game, what is better and stronger than having 2 or 1 of the 2-star Druids on your board? All of a sudden you get both Druids 2-star or maybe even a 3-star Druid before round 10. And this allows you to snowball your way in the early game into the mid game with some great saving and some great HP buffer as well. You can then think of going for 4 Druids, maybe Druids Savages, maybe Druids Hunters, or even anything with the Druids. Druids Mages can work. So Druids are very versatile. The downside with Druids is most players tend to forget that we can sell the Druids and go into something else. I prefer 2 Druids than 4 Druids because of the amount of units I can add with another alliance. But if I do find all my Druids 2-star and 3-star super early, they're still very good. After the Druids, the Warriors is one of those underrated alliance by most of us because yes, the Warriors are tanky and they get plus 10 armor for the 3 Warriors we have, and I usually go with 3 Warriors. On top of the tankiness, the warriors actually have a hidden passive which they reduce the mana gain of the enemy. Because most enemy damage dealers in the backline, range damage dealers, and even mages that hits the warriors that's frontline, with more armor, they do less physical damage, and because they do less physical damage, there's less mana gain for them. And because they tend to not get attacked in the backline, there's no way of them getting mana fast to cast their spells. So warriors actually denies the mana gain from enemy from normal attacks, which is very strong in all stages of the game. And in the early rounds, if you find 3 warriors and even one of those 2-star warriors, those 2-star warriors can be very strong. The Tiny, the Axe, or even the Tusk. Because you have a solid front line, you can build something in the backline, maybe Heartless, maybe Assassins, or maybe just Druids for more healing and more sustain. So warriors are definitely very high ranked in the early game and mid game. The thing to remember is 6 warriors only gain 5 additional armor. So 3 warriors give 10 armor, 6 warriors add only 5 additional armor to the warriors. So it's not very necessary to go 6 warriors unless you really find those 2-star warriors and go deeper into the Troll Warlord. On the side of warriors, what we can do with warriors is we can use 3 warriors, add any of the cheaper lines and start to save up. Most of the time, with enough 2-star warriors, we can have a good solid early game, which allows us to save up again and go aggressive further into the game. I like warriors with hunters, warriors with savages, warriors with druids, and warriors with most of the top synergies can work very well. On the second tier, we have the S- tier. Those tiers of alliance are by no means weaker than the top ones, but they have their little individual flaw in this particular patch, and others like the Warlock and Heartless are not going to be a main core build, they are like a supportive branch build. So let's start with mages. Mages are great. 3 mages plus 2 warlocks tends to be my favorite build, and it's very strong with all the legendaries. Even after the patch change with nerf to most of the tier 4 and tier 5 units, mages can still work. The downside with mages is that we can't start the game with mages. Most mages are for mid game and late game because they are 2 cost, 3 cost, and upwards. If you want to play mages, you have to start with something else. Especially when you pick mage item in the early game, it doesn't benefit you as much compared to a hunter item or savage item, the alliance item that is, the final flash. On top of that, mages might have a terrible game, never finding your crystal maiden or never finding enough mages to 2-star. Because of that, mages are punished by the early game dominance of hunters and savages and warriors. When your mage mature after round 15 or maybe after round 21, you might find yourself with too low of HP. But that said, mages are still one of the most powerful alliance into the mid to late game, but finding the clutch of mages, say 2-star crystal maiden, 2-star keeper, is going to be very crucial. Because of the delay of the mage's power spike, I have put mage a little down with the alliance tier list, but mages can definitely work with 3 mages or 6 mages. After the mage, we have one of the best branching alliance in the game, the warlocks. Warlocks only require 2 units, and you can find those in the early game, mid game, and late game. In the early game, you can have Venomancer, the Witch Doctor, and you can also look into the Mr. Warlock. Those 3 can give enough sustain just by finding 2 of them, and maybe one of them to 2-star. Warlock also goes late game with the Shadow Fiend, Necromancer, and Disruptor. This for Warlocks is very good because it's such a good branch build, and it allows you to heal other units. I have tried Warlock Hunters, Savage Warlocks, Mage Warlocks, Druid Warlocks. It works so well with most builds. But the downside with Warlocks is if we keep building Warlocks without a main build, very soon we will realize ourselves to be lacking in sustained long-term damage or single target damage. And that's why Warlock is not on the highest tier, but as a support on the second tier. Very similar to the Warlocks, we also have the Heartless. The Heartless here minus armor for the enemy. This is a very crucial branch for most of the physical attack dealers like the Hunters, Savages, and Warriors. Heartless can be useful even in mages, as you deal more physical damage, you gain mana faster. A -5 armor will give us close to 22% physical damage increase amplification on the enemy, and that is quite a bit, because if we think about it, 2 savages only give 10% armor bonus, and those armor bonus are deducted by armor, while the amplification damage is like pure damage, 22% additional damage to the enemy. So this is great. The downside with Heartless that's not on top of the tier is that the Heartless just has been nerfed with the 6 Heartless, and after the nerf, 6 Heartless is no longer viable. And also, most of the Heartless are all over the place. There's a Hunter Heartless, there's a Mage Heartless, there's a Warlock. You do want to build around the Heartless, and they are better branching as a support alliance instead of a main alliance. So sometimes I go Heartless Hunters, other times Heartless Mages, Heartless Scrappies with 4 from Grace. So Heartless can work, but we need to keep in mind going 6 Heartless might be a little too much. After the Heartless, we have the Assassins. Multiple Assassin units has been buffed over the past 2 patches, Morphling, Queen of Pain, PA, lots of those good Assassins. The biggest buff to Assassins is that they no longer jump directly, but they will hit units that's in front of them. This is a massive buff to Sand King on top of his entire kit that's buffed. Sand King can stay in the front line. If there's anyone that's in front of him, he will receive damage, stay there, and do an AoE stun to the entire enemy team if he curve properly. So Assassins are definitely making it in the meta, and Assassins do punish the early game builds because they go for the backline. They kill Mages, Warlocks, Hunters, or even Savages by killing the squishies. And because of that, Assassins are great for early and mid game. The downside for Assassins are the opposite of the Mages. Mages comes online in the late game, while Assassins falls off in the late game. Because you will need 3-star Assassins, you also need your opponent to not tailor against you with their positioning. By defending against Assassins, if we all go into the corner, if we have a proper tank in the backline for ready to be Assassin jumping, then Assassins can't break the formation. Most of the Assassins, or half of them, are melee units. Slag, Bounty Hunter, Bloodseeker, PA. Those units want to get close, but if the room for engagement is only 3 cells of positioning, the other Assassin just stands there while the rest of them try to kill units, and if your Assassins are only 2-star, they can't kill units fast. If the enemy also bait Assassins with a unit to the corner, you find a few Assassins jumping at them and they get stuck there. And they take a while to kill this one. By that time, the enemy may be casting a crucial spell, Shadow Thing, AoE stuns. So the late game Assassin potential is still there with 3 stars and correct stunning, but you can be countered very much just by positioning. As an Assassin build, you want to look for AoE stuns. 2-star Conquer, 2-star Tide Hunter, 2-star Tiny, or 2-star Sand King is going to be crucial for you. You can also look for the 2 jewels for Assassins. This will give you the Savage and Elusive with the Lone Druid and Train Protector. Train goes with PA and TA, while the Savage goes with Lone Druid and Sand King. So Assassins are definitely making it in this meta. They're also a good counter to the top builds if you have enough 2-stars early. On to the 3rd tier, which is the A tier. Most of those branches of units can be great. The Trolls, the 4 Trolls, or even the 2 Trolls are great, especially with the Coordinate Assault Troll item. The Knights, the Inventors, the Scrappies, the Dragons, the Brownies, those are good. But what we do notice here is that those are not early game builds. And of course, humans are just here who turns into Heartless, and the Deadeye just here because they're quite nice compared to other ones. Those builds, those alliances are not early game alliances. If we go for those, and if we don't find enough 2-stars to make a solid footing in the early game, we're going to be so punished into the mid game. We're looking at about 40 or 50% HP after round 15, and after round 20, we'll be lucky to be on 40 or 30% HP. And at that time, the top tier alliance might have snowballed with enough savings, with enough rolling of 3-star units to kill us even when our build matures, because we don't have enough HP and economy to compare to those early game tempo builds. But that said, the Trolls and the Knights can still work, the Knights and the Dragons can still work, Scrappies and Mages can still work, Heartless can be combined into other things, and also the Deadeye is great for Hunters. So those are more like situational, but those can still work. The biggest factor here that decides it is how many of those units you find early game and how much of a solid footing you have before things get too wild after round 20. The 4th tier of units are the Scaled, the Demons, Demon Hunter, Elusive, and Shamans. Those can work situationally, and if the enemies are mostly Hunters and Savages, the Scales are not going to be very much useful. If you don't have the Strange Bedfellow, the Demons seems to be a little off with damage. The Demon Hunters are just there to counter a Demon. Elusive at those things you have, you're like, oh, I have that. It's not going to be game changing unless you go 6 or 9 elusive. At the same time, the elusive deal mostly physical damage, and that's a problem. Most late game builds needs a burst damage, needs a control, and if you don't have those, it seems to be a little lower tier compared to that alliance. And elusive are not super powerful in the early game, so overall it's a little lower compared to everything else. We know the shamans because the Arc Warden and friends were spamming shamans. The shamans are okay, but they're not going to be game changing. It's not that you find the shamans, you're going to win the game, but rather they are supportive builds. Under C tier, we have the Blood Bond. The Blood Bond is positioned here not because it's weak, it's actually quite strong in the early game. The Blood Bond can be used with a 2-star Ogre or a 2-star Mr. Warlock, and you can spam a little more of them, so your entire team can be made of like 4 Ogres and 1 Warlock in the early game. But that said, after round 10 and even going further, most players will have 6 and plus units, and that's when Blood Bond start to fall off. We can still make a niche play with Blood Bond, with a big time contract, giving it to a Luna, giving it to a Slag, or maybe a Shadowfiend. This can still work. But the downside with Blood Bond is into the mid and the late game, you are taking up space of crucial alliance. Mid game to late game, you need the alliance that buffs the entire team with damage, defensive, stuns, and healing. But the Blood Bond takes up 4 or 3 space just with the amplification of damage to 1 unit. And that unit does no more attack. So that unit can be disarmed, it can be stunned. So overall, the Blood Bond is a great pickup build because Ogres and Warlock can be sold in the early game, and they can help you to get a little boost at the start. But if you keep going deeper with them, even at 3-star, they're not strong enough in the late game. So I put it here to allow us to not get baited by Blood Bond fully into the late game, but we can still use them. And lastly, of course, we're looking at Primordials. Primordials have been nerfed quite nicely, and maybe a little too much. So now even with 2 or 4 Primordial, we don't feel much, and they don't do much. Yes, I see a slow-mo attack, the attack still connects, they still gain mana, and it used to be a defensive passive. Now it's just like, oh, I have that, but it doesn't do anything. It's just there because I happen to have that. Instead of, yes, I want that because my build will need this to be defensive. And if that's the case, it's better to go into Brownies, better to go into Inventors and the Warriors to be defensive. So Primordials are still good because we happen to have that, but it's no longer a necessary alliance that we look forward to build as a defensive alliance. Overall, for this particular tier list, we have tailored this tier list for the fast-paced meta of the Underlord changes. And because of that, most games don't last to around 35 or 30 for most players. By building towards the early game tempo controlling alliance, this allows us to perform much better compared to others in coming top 4 and in securing a bit of the MMR ranking. But if you're going for fun games, all of those alliances can be built in a variety of build styles. We had Ethereum with Octarian Essence, and 2 of them, which summoned about 300 trains over the course of the game, because I completed the quest with 300 spells casted. That said, we want to build alliance by combining them. We want to combine Hunters with Heartless, we want to combine Savages, maybe with something that's tanky. We want to combine alliance. That's when the game becomes most fun and useful for us. So let me know your combination of best alliance and choices of units in the comments below as well. Thank you so much for watching for this particular alliance tier list, guys. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn the notification on for this and other guides to be posted, and the tier list for the items and alliance and the units for the future updates and for these updates to come. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Please follow and subscribe to support me on Twitch as well. Thank you. So